Let us pray. Lord God, we thank you that your Son, Jesus Christ, came among us as one who serves. And through his actions and his words, we've been taught a nobler way to lead. Grant your wisdom to all in places of authority in this and every land, that they may know your will, and keeping always before you their minds the needs of others, may discover that in serving them, they are serving you. To the same Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Want to read the numbers? This house is in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 18th November 2025 to be confirmed. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be confirmed.
The question is that the aforementioned minutes be confirmed. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby confirmed. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 2nd December 2025 to be deferred. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be deferred.
The question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honour, the Speaker.
I wish to welcome and acknowledge the presence of the Seroptimists of Jamestown International with the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence under the theme set by the United Nations, Unite Against Digital Violence, comprising 9 students from Harrison College, Queen's College, Combermere, Spring Memorial, and UWI, and Magistrate Barbara Taylor, Program Action Officer, and Mrs. Ian Graham. Mr. Ian Graham. Mrs. Ian Graham. Stand up. Stand up. Right. I'm in receipt of a message from the Honourable Senate to the Honourable House of Assembly. The Honourable Senate has the honour to inform the Honourable House of Assembly that on the 3rd day of December 2025, the Honourable Senate committed the following bills. Tourism Accommodation Bill 2025 and Barbados Tourism Product Authority Repeal Transfer of Assets and Liabilities Bill 2025 to the Joint Select Committee standing on economic and productive sectors, subject to the concurrence of the Honourable the House of Assembly. Dated the 3rd day of December 2025, signed by the President.
Messages from His Excellency the President, petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills, statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motion for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Government business, sir.
Government business is the order of the day.
Order number 11, in the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution to approve, in accordance with the provisions of the Special Loans Act, Chapter 105, the borrowing by the Government of Barbados of the sum of approximately Barbados $313.6 million from the China Sinopharm International Corporation, Sinopharmental, on the terms and conditions contained in 2 deferred payment agreements, the main provisions of which are set out in the schedule, to finance 80% of the costs associated with the design and construction, one building with an outpatient clinic, a patient ward, a burn unit, and a laboratory center known as Queen Elizabeth Hospital and Moore Site Extension Lot 1 project, and B, 1 building with an oncology center, an administration office, and outside works known as Queen Elizabeth Hospital and Moore Site Extension Lot 2 project.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, I want to also pledge to spread the message, sir, of peace and nonviolence wherever I go, in recognition of the work that these goodly young people are leading, and to indicate that I know that the Honourable Minister of People Empowerment has been with you. I see him painting some shoes on Instagram, but in all seriousness, Mr. Speaker, it's important to realize that as we continue to invest in building human capital, that gender-based violence has no place in a modern society, and therefore the government of Barbados gives its full commitment in relation to this matter. I beg your indulgence, sir, that this resolution, along with order number 10, which is also under the Special Loans Act, I beg the House permission to debate both as a cognate debate, sir.
The question is that orders number 10 and 11 be treated as a cognate debate, given the fact that they are inextricably linked together. All those members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker. I have been reflecting, sir, on some commentary as it relates to the debt situation in our country, sir. And this particular resolution today is, these two resolutions actually, taken together, really explains, and I will take a little time just to explain for the benefit of certainly these young people who are here this morning, how government utilizes resources. And I hope in explaining to you that the leader of the opposition and his team will also benefit, sir, from the clarifications that and information that I will share with these young people here today. Through you, sir, of course. The clerk, in reading out just a summary piece of the resolution, of this particular resolution, order number 11, is asking Parliament's permission to borrow resources, sir, in order to expand the country's capability to provide health care for our citizens. With the best will in the world, sir, and I say this up front, as I've said every time we've come here in Parliament, sir, on April 1st, sir, when we have passed the appropriation accounts for the year, the government does not start in the Treasury, sir, with the revenue that is projected. Namely, the $3.7 or $3.8 billion in revenue, we do not start on April 1st with that money in the kitty, so to speak, sir. And therefore, government's ability, any government's ability, not just in Barbados, but any part of the world, must have the capability of delivering, sir, on any economic program, any social program. At the heart of that delivery, sir, is the financing. Where do you get the resources from to deliver for people? And because you don't start with the total revenue on April 1st, because as we know, we all pay taxes on a monthly basis, a little piece at a time, individuals and businesses. Government has to consume goods and services to provide to the public. Employees have to be paid on a monthly basis. And therefore, sir, if we waited until people file their income tax every month in order to get that money to do something, sir, it will mean that a number of services could not be delivered on time as people expect when they show up at a polyclinic today, yesterday, sir, tomorrow, because of the cash flow situation. And therefore, government's ability to deliver requires financing. And I will take the time just to go through what this specific resolution is about and how it fits in to the overall financing structure, but equally how it relates to people actually consuming or benefiting, I should say, from those public goods and public services. In this case, sir, healthcare. That said, sir, government uses a range of options to deliver on its mandate, its public policy. And so we are here today to ask Parliament's permission to borrow these sums of monies, significant sums of monies, in order to expand the QEH and the services that we can offer to people at the QEH. And the resolution speaks to the fact that the sum of monies that we are asking to borrow is $316 million. Now, that is not an insignificant amount of money, sir. And it speaks to the two lots for which we will be constructing at on the other side of the road from the QEH, sir. $316 million. Now remember I said, sir, at the beginning of the year, we do not start with all of the revenue in the Treasury. We have to collect it over time. And so if at any point in time, sir, you know, Bajans like to say we buy a car cash, we do this cash, sir. The government can't operate like that, because if we adopted that type of philosophy, then nothing could possibly get done, sir, because there's no point in time, sir, where the government will have $316 million, in this instance, cash, quote unquote, to be able to set aside without impairing other deliverables for government. So these young students here go to school, one at university and the others at the secondary schools that you call, sir. So if we were to take out $316 million right now and say we can set aside this money from the budget to expand the QEH, then it will mean that there will be $316 million that could not do anything else in the budget for this year. So what will we do, sir? We take the opportunity to engage in borrowing, sir, whilst continuing to invest in the education of these young persons here and their peers, so that when they get to adult age, sir, and they're skilled in whatever area they desire to participate in, that they then can help contribute to the repayment of some of the debt that would have incurred to ensure that they and their families can have access not just to education, to healthcare in this instance, but the other services that were being able to be offered. And I speak in this way because it's important that people understand and appreciate that, like every household, you have a choice. The longer it takes for you to do something, sir, then it means that it either becomes more costly, or in this instance, because it is delivery of health care, it means that citizens don't get the opportunity to have the best care necessarily available because we are delaying the facilities that are critical, the equipment that is critical to delivering on care. And so we are here today, sir, to simply say that whilst this specific loan is earmarked, meaning that the only thing that this money is going to be spent on is the expansion of the QEH. And therefore this resolution, sir, means that when the government borrows this money and we put in our counterparty financing, which is the other 20%, sir, that the monies that we are borrowing cannot then be used for something else. So when Barbadians start to drive past Martindale's Road, sir, and start to see the activity taking place on the other side of the road, sir, I hope, as has been the case, people have been asking, well, you're borrowing all this money, where is the money going? When Barbadians start to see the construction and the demolition and the erection of these buildings taking place, I hope that they will remember that we came to this chamber as we do. And I say it for the benefit of these young people who are here today, sir. Every loan agreement that government enters into comes to this place. It is a document that is laid in this place that you can go to barbadosparliament.com, sir. And in the day files of barbadosparliament.com, sir, you can see, if you care to read every word of the terms and conditions of any loan agreement that the government enters into. So there's no secret, nobody is hiding anything, but it is there. As you know, sir, that every year, I'm sorry, I think I have one I'll only show it for the purpose of the young people that are here. Every year the government produces one of these things here called the estimates. Yeah? And there is a particular appendix in here, Appendix C, that outlines every single loan that government has entered into, what the interest rates are, so that you can see everything and the authority under which the government was borrowing these loans. So when people tell you that they don't know where the money is going and what's happening to it, you can see an account in here. So don't take my word for it. I want you to go on Parliament's website through you, sir, barbadosparliament.com. And you can download from any year estimates. And you download the document, and Appendix C every year gives a summary of every single loan that the government enters into. If you want more details, it gives you the legal authority, and you can go into the DARE files and get the specific loan agreements that will tell you every little legal detail about what is required to be done in the loan contracts and what the monies are for. Now, I say that specifically because this loan, as I said earlier, cannot be spent on anything else other than the expansion of the QEH on the other side of the road. And I know when the Honourable Minister speaks, Minister of State and Health, he will explain the intricacies in terms of what's happening, because at the end of the day, in order for us to ensure that we can deliver better for you and your families, and to ensure as well that people do not go bankrupt in Barbados because they get sick, like how they do in other places. The government is committed to ensuring not just your education, but the health of the nation is secured. And that requires us to be able to access resources that are not immediately available in such quantums to allow us to be able, over I think it's a 24-month or 30-month period, to have the construction completed, so that once they become operational, that citizens of Barbados and those who are residents here will have better access to healthcare facilities. And that is the reason why we are here this morning, to be able to enter into this loan. The other loan, I will speak very briefly, is a policy-based loan. This one is now from OPEC, which is resolution number 10. A policy-based loan, which, as Barbados has advocated to all of the multilateral institutions, Mr. Speaker, we've advocated that rather than coming up with new policies and trying to because we've done a lot of reforms over the last 7 years, sir, rather than come up with new policy matrices and prior actions in order to access resources, OPEC say, look, we are happy with the work that you've been doing in the social sector over the last few years, which was an IDB policy-based loan. And they've agreed to utilize the work that we've already started and to give us $50 million US dollars, 100 million Barbados, to help us continue that work. Now, this policy-based loan is not a specific loan that is earmarked specifically, but it is to allow the government the flexibility to determine how it would use those resources in order to ensure that it continues the policy intervention. And since coming to office, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central can attest that we have had to utilize a range of policy-based instruments from the various multilaterals to give Barbados the flexibility to be able to move the economy from where it was 7.5 years ago to where it is today. But I will be very specific, because sometimes, sir, people may forget, sir, that when the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, and I know some of you may be a little too young perhaps to remember, but given your ages, 7 years ago, when we came to office, sewage was flowing freely on the streets of Barbados for almost 3 years. And the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, supported by the government, ensured that the Barbados Water Authority was able, by December of 2018, we had moved the flows from off of the streets, having a temporary discharge out to the ocean. Now, clap, you can clap for that. But the point I want to make, sir, is that the monies expended did not just materialize, sir, because the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central in Economic Affairs at the time, I don't mean to no, there's talk about debt, Mr. Speaker. You know full well there's been some something in this chamber talking about there's only one economist in here. So I want to make it patently clear, sir, even though so patently clear through you, sir, that the honorable member for St. Michael South Central, working with the multilateral development banks, secured a range of policy-based loans that allowed the government the flexibility, rather than this specific loan here, which is only for the expansion of the QEH. The policy-based loans allowed us to say, member for Christchurch East, here, the water authority needs these resources to fix the sewage problem. This is what we will do. The member for Christchurch West was the Minister of Transport. We didn't have any buses in the countries at that time. The policy-based loans allow us to say to him, order these buses so that the transport board fleet can be increased so that you can get to school. Sir, you meaning these young people here, that you can get to school. The member for St. Michael East was in charge of the Ministry of Environment at the time. Sanitation only had 12 trucks, sir, and those policy-based loans, some of that money was used to say to the SSA, order these garbage trucks so that your families don't have to keep food in the fridge for 4 and 5 and 6 weeks because garbage was not being collected in this country. I speak in this way, sir, because whilst there's a narrative that people want to know where the money gone, for the most part, sir, as you will remember, St. Peter, parts of St. Lucie, St. Andrew, St. Joseph, St. George, and St. John, for the majority of 2012 to 2018, were without water in this country. They were without those parishes, and coincidentally, those parishes tended to support the Barbados Labour Party. But those parishes and the families and the people of those parishes were without water, sir, for all of that time, and there was no effort to resolve the problem for those people living, those Bajans living in those parishes. And again, we borrowed, and I'm going to get to the numbers, as part of our financing, we could not do that, sir. Give public servants a salary increase, start back repaying the tuition at the university. I know the young leader here is in her 3rd year at the university. Young people had to defer attending the university because the previous government decided that people had to pay, and families were not prepared to be able to finance them. So you are attending university today without having to pay directly, because we determined, sir, we determined how we would prioritize government's budget to allow young people, just like how you, sir, paid when I was at university, sir. I now am paying that you at the university, and that is how Barbados continues to build capacity. And we could not do that, sir, we could not do that if we did not prioritize what we needed to do and to treat education and health as social investments. The Barbados Labour Party, sir, views these things as critical to the development of the country. So this is not an economic argument like people like to pigeonhole and say, the economy recovering now, so what you're doing for people. We have been delivering for people from the time we came to office 7.5 years ago, sir. And we have utilized the fact that, one, we had to restructure our debt, and in restructuring our debt, we had to prioritize what was necessary for people. But I come back to the point about the water. Because when the Barbados Water Authority ain't wanting to deliver water for those parishes in the north, sir, the Barbados Water Authority, they have any money to do it, sir. And we utilize some of the same policy-based loans, sir, to give the Barbados Water Authority almost $200 million, sir, to be able to dig those trenches from, I speak subject to correction, but I believe it was Cattle Wash, all the way up the East Coast and the other parts of that area. We built new reservoirs, sir, new reservoirs with monies, yes, that was borrowed because we simply did not have the money on budget to do it in the time frame that would have brought relief to people. If we had taken a different approach, we would still be trying to find the money every year to be able to solve those problems for people. And therefore, I want you to appreciate and understand that yes, we borrowed some money, but we also paid back some money, and I'm going to get to that. Because it's important that you understand, sir, that it's okay to get up and say, oh, the government borrowing all this money, and every time you come here, there's a resolution for debt and all of this thing. But we have made decisions in relation to not just how to manage the fiscal situation, but how to deliver for people. Now, sir, the next time, and it's not on all because remember, we bought buses directly from BYD in China. But we also, sir, through the I only pause, sir, because I hear echo. I hear echo. So just trying to make sure that I was just trying to make sure that I know that sometimes they say repetition is good, but I will leave that where it is for the moment, sir.
I will soon put out members and their phones.
Well,
Constantly.
sir, that is well within your
whose
authority.
phones consistently go off in this chamber. I will not leave the phones by themselves. I will have the members leave with their phones.
I appreciate that, sir. I appreciate that. Now, I know. So, I make the point, sir, that some of the fleet of the Transport Board, which you can see traversing the island, sir, there was a loan, Smart Energy, which was supported by the IDB, sir. And as part of that loan, which focused on how we would, one, provide resources for persons to access for renewable energy, part of that loan agreement was the delivery of electric buses so that Bajans can get to and from school and work. And the reason I raise that, sir, is because we keep saying, or there's people who keep saying that we don't know where the money has gone. On a few of the buses, you will see either China Aid or you will see IDB. The next time you see a Transport Board bus, you will see the ones that were donated, China Aid. You will see the ones that were part of the Energy Smart Fund loan. You will see IDB literally either on the back or the front of the bus. And the truth is, sir, whilst the remainder, sir, don't have a specific label, the reality that those buses were purchased from loan proceeds that we negotiated, sir. And perhaps we should have said, Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central, we probably should have put on those buses, these buses were bought by PBL X, Y, and Z, and perhaps that we should do that in the future, because seeing is believing. So I swear, when the next time you see the Transport Board buses, you will see on some that don't have anything at all, some will have China Aid, and a few of them have the IDB Smart Energy Fund, I think, on the label. And I say this in all seriousness, sir, because perhaps it's time that government starts to be a little more visible with respect to these things, because there's this narrative developing that somehow or the other, the macro does not relate to the micro, meaning with the people, which is not true. Now, whilst you can always argue about, well, the inner workings of the deployment of buses and garbage trucks and those types of things, the reality is that the provisioning with respect to having access to these things, we have determined that these are the priorities, and we have chosen to ensure that these state-owned enterprises are capable of delivering for people up front. And so there's no mystery, sir, with respect to where some of the money has gone, because during COVID, sir, when the economy declined by about 15%, sir, we didn't send home any public servants. Not one. Not one. Furthermore, sir, when the unemployment fund of the NIS, you would remember, sir, suddenly was inundated with nearly 40,000 applications in March and April of 2020. In a normal year, you might have, up until that point, in a normal year, you might have maybe 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 over the course of a year. So over the course of a year, you can manage that type of flow of getting people their unemployment benefits. During COVID, we had almost 30,000 applications for unemployment benefits all in one go. So think about it. You have a little half-inch pipe, which is, and I don't mean to describe it in that way, but you have a small flow of applications on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so that over the course of the year, you can manage that small flow. And suddenly, sir, with COVID, you have a 12-inch pipe coming at you all at once, which means that the fund and the rate at which the fund could deliver for those people obviously meant that the fund was exhausted almost overnight. We then had to allow the unemployment fund, which the honourable member, I should say the leader of the opposition, he was then with us, and he understood then why we needed to do what we needed to do. He would recall...
The honourable member, not he. The honourable member.
The honourable, yes, I said the leader of the opposition, my apologies, sir. The leader of the opposition agreed with us then, one, to allow the unemployment fund of the national insurance. If you don't believe, well, not that you don't believe me, if you don't remember, ask your parents. The unemployment fund then had to borrow from the substantive NIS in order to pay those people the unemployment that was due to them because of the sudden shutdown of the economy. But the honourable, I forget the section of the act, but you know, sir, I believe it's section 34, it is 33 or 34, where the Ministry of Finance always has to make whole the NIS. And we had to give back the NIS the money that they lent to the unemployment fund to give the workers who were made unemployed during COVID. Now, sir, I don't know where the leader of the opposition, he knows where the money came from to do that then. Because it is those people, those Barbadians, sir, that we had to try to make whole in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of great global uncertainty. And I have to remind him that the honourable member for St. Michael South Central pressed into action again, sir, an economist, pressed into action again, sir, again, to negotiate with CAF, IDB, the World Bank, sir, to get PBLs in place, meaning we had to borrow money just to keep things going, to be able to do all of these things so that ordinary people in the most extreme of circumstances could see their way through until the tourism and the flights started to come back a few months later. Slowly, but started to come back a little bit. And the leader of the opposition knows what we did. He was with us then, but he will want to pretend now, sir. He will want to pretend as if the money that we borrowed wasn't for the people of Barbados, sir. But I'm saying to these young people here, through you, sir, today, that this government, we ain't lick up no money, as the Bajans would say. We ain't lick up no money. Everything that we have done has been systematic, sir. Systematic to ensure that we kept families in this country as whole as possible, because the financial strain, the stress, and all of those things that people were going through, we worked really hard, sir, to ensure that we kept this country on an even keel. And therefore, so we are not going to run and hide when it comes to this debt conversation, sir. We are not going to run and hide, because without our intervention, sir, I don't know where this economy would have been, because there was no interest in solving any of those mission critical issues that we had. We solved them, and we are now ensuring that we can improve on the delivery of those public services, as I said, sir, to ensure that the things that still humbugging Bajans a little bit, that we can make sure that those things can be turned around. And some of them are legitimate, and we are working, sir, on those things. But at the end of the day, sir, this is not to be trifled with, because your ability to finance a program means that people must have confidence in what you're doing. And the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, sir, has been successful. Because every single year, as well, sir, you would know we come to this Parliament, and we do, coming on to the end of the financial year, and we will say to colleagues, what are the priority projects that you have in your ministry? And where appropriate, we will then allocate resources to ministries and particularly state-owned enterprises to help continue the works. So whether it is National Assistance Board with respect to the senior citizens homes that are made, the National Assistance Board, sir, to provide for senior citizens villages in communities, because whilst, sir, we are building a new geriatric hospital, and I'm going to come to that soon, we recognize that not everybody wants to be in the geriatric hospital setting. And therefore, if you can have a cluster of villages where elderly persons can do their release and that type of thing in a much more independent-driven community, that's the type of thing that we want, in recognition of the fact that we have these young people here, sir, and recognizing that the population is aging, then they must understand that the policies that we are already starting to put in place is to ensure that when you become of age, that it's a little easier for you to manage the affairs of the country, because we are planning ahead. And we are thinking 25 years down the road, not just the fact that the leader of the opposition has a more short-term perspective. The reality, the government is thinking ahead 25 years down the road, because it is important to make sure that when you pass the baton, sir, that you pass the baton stronger than when you took it up in the first instance. But I come to the geriatric hospital, sir. So whilst this resolution here is money earmarked specifically and only for the expansion of the QEH, during that time we have been allocating monies every year from some of the same PBLs, sir, set aside to the BTI, Barbados Tourism Investment Inc., sir, which we charge with the responsibility of constructing that facility. We gave them money every year, just like we gave the Water Authority monies not to do the laying of the pipes and bringing water to the people of the north, from the resources that we've been able to borrow, because we had the flexibility. Because not everything you need to be locked into a specific project. And therefore, The geriatric hospital that people see in Waterford, that was built by us allocating resources every fiscal year, piece by piece, as my grandmother would say, piece by piece, dedicated so, in order to ensure that when they started, that they can finish. And I know that they're almost to completion in relation to that matter. So whilst you will not see in any of these documents, you're not going to see a loan specific for the geriatric hospital, sir, because we took resources from PBLs as well as government's ordinary cash flow and allocated to them through the budget process to ensure then that the facility can be constructed. And that way, we did not have to increase the tax, which is another conversation, Mr. Speaker. We did not have to increase the tax to be able to deliver those things. And therefore, as we are creating, I suppose, momentum in terms of government's capital works programs, it is always intended to ensure that we can deliver services for the people. And every single year, sir, as you know, we've come to this chamber and we have given money to each ministry. And I just use a few examples. Others can speak to some of the monies that they've gotten. But the reality is that we have been able to deliver on a range of things. Some, like during COVID, we had to use a significant amount of the resources, sir, to be able to ensure that, as I said, the NIS had to get repaired because, you know, sir, if we didn't repair the NIS, because the NIS had to lend to the unemployment fund, you will hear a big set of bacchanal that how the Ministry of Finance was negligent with respect to its fiduciary responsibility. You understand? But we did so to ensure that people could get paid. And you will remember, sir, that in addition to the fact that individuals, because of the employment situation, needed the unemployment benefits, we also set up something called the Barbados Employment Sustainability Program for the hotel sector to ensure that the hotels maintain their properties, because I'm not sure if you, the young people here realize, when you leave something locked up, shut up for too long, it starts to get dilapidated very quickly. And therefore, the government, using, again, resources, set up a structure to allow our hotel sectors, those who were extremely vulnerable, to ensure that they could keep on some of the staff, sir, to keep the place in some type of activity, so that when the flight started back, that there wasn't going to be this other cost associated with trying to get this thing done. And this was not done because of any particular favoritism with respect to hotels. The fact is, though, hotels generate a large amount of the foreign exchange that allows every single Barbadian to go about their daily lives. Because most of us don't earn foreign exchange directly. So this iPad that the Cabinet Office gave to me, sir, Apple is not interested in Barbados dollars. Apple is interested in US dollars, sir. And therefore you have to earn foreign exchange. So when the tourists come and pay the hotels with respect to the earning of foreign exchange, I could only, even this microphone I talk to you, sir, this microphone is not manufactured in Barbados. The reality is that they need foreign exchange for these things. So the hotel sector is the significant earner of foreign exchange. So yes, we can go on Amazon today and order all types of things, but if the central bank don't have the foreign exchange to pay Apple or whoever it is that wants this thing, then sir, then we import it. And therefore, strategically, we had to ensure that we didn't have a double whammy, whereby the hotel shut up for a long period of time, and then when the flights start back, people come in and complaining about the state of the plant and all of that. And those resources, again, sir, were utilized from some of the PBLs that were borrowed during COVID to ensure that our hotel sector could remain in a sufficiently viable state that allows us now to see 8,000 people coming in last week, Thursday, I think it was, with the flights at the airport. sir, the good work of the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central and his team, which coincidentally ensures then that more Bajans are participating in the economy and being able to ensure that we continue to earn foreign exchange. But I digress, sir. I digress. So I'll come back on track for the benefit of the leader of the opposition. Now, sir, the other aspect, and I hope he's taking notes, because he normally does take copious notes. He says so himself in here on more than one occasion. So I hope he's taking his notes well today, sir. I come back to the financing point, sir. Since October of 2022, sir, you would remember, sir, that when we did the debt restructuring in October of 2018, we had a 4-year grace period. A 4-year grace period meaning that the government was only paying interest on its debt, but not principal. The principal payments started in October of 2022. That was the original plan. That was the original plan. And it's something that I should bring to the House's attention and to remind the leader of the opposition so that when he's doing his forward planning, that he will have a fuller appreciation for how the government finances work. Because in the past, under a previous Barbados Labour Party government, when there was fiscal discipline, sir, people will lend us money, sir. People will lend us money, and we would pay the interest only. There would be a sinking fund where you would put a piece of money in every, a little medium term, not quite a medium term, but a sinking fund where you just put in the money to help repay the principal at the end. So people will lend us money, and at the end, so whether it's a 10-year loan, a 20-year loan, you would repay the principal at the end. That used to happen normally from 1966, sir, up until somewhere in 2016-17 when it wasn't working. Let me be clear. Let me be clearer. Clearer. That worked well, sir, from November 30th, 1966, sir, until January 15th, 2008, sir. I'm being very clear. Very clear. Because everything that happened since January 15th, 2008 and May 24th of 2018, sir, was completely outside of the record of fiscal management in this country. They had a little blip in 1991 and 2, but that's a different subject. The point is, people used to lend us money and trust that we would repay them in full when the time comes. Such was the case when we came into office. You would recall, sir, our debt to GDP was 178.9% in total, sir, which means that all of the money that we had available in economic activity in 2018, every cent that we had, sir, and at that point, it was estimated around $9.6 billion of economic activity. All of the goods that we're producing and generating income was about $9.5 billion, sir. Our debt was 18 billion, which included 1.2 billion that was owed to businesses. So in other words, the government engaged the services of businesses and they didn't pay them, which is wrong. In another place where the speaker operates, it's called that theft. But that's a different discussion for another thing, because when you engage somebody, you should pay them. So 18 billion in total. And therefore, we had a situation where even if the country had decided that it wanted to clear off trade, to clear off all its debt using everybody's income, including individuals, companies. We simply didn't have enough money to pay everybody. So then when we did the restructuring, sir, we had to put in a feature, because whilst I am disciplined, I can't guarantee you that who may come next is disciplined. So we put a feature in our debt, like most regular debt instruments, where we are now repaying both interest and principal, so that piece by piece by piece by piece, you're ensuring that, one, the total interest that you pay will not be as high, because ordinarily, if you keep your principal payment until the end, when you do the calculation for the interest, you'll be paying interest on the total amount for the entire period of the loan. So we changed that to make sure that every quarter or every 6 months, depending on the term, that we are also paying down principal, because once the principal is reducing, the interest calculated on that is also reducing over time, which is a much better way to manage your finances if people can get them done properly. So we are not governing for our period, but we are governing to make sure that if should things go awry again, that there are mechanisms in place to make sure that our debt is covered. And so we have introduced that feature. But what that means is that if you do not have the discipline, because you're committing more resources currently to continue to pay your debt, it means then that when we put out our notices, I don't know if the young people read newspapers these days, sir, but every month, roughly, give or take, 6 weeks, the government will put out a treasury bill notice. A treasury bill for 91 days, Mr. Speaker, 91 days. So what that treasury bill does, it says to the market, the government wants to be able to raise a short-term instrument to deliver services. Because as I explained earlier, sir, people pay their income tax the 15th of the month for the previous month. People pay the VAT on the 22nd for the previous 2 months. So there's a cycle of collecting money for government, sir. That means that if I wanted to start a project at the beginning of October, which is the quarter, I can't wait till I get the money in November, December to start something in October. So I will put out an instrument, because I want to start in October, with the Treasury Bill 91 days, so I can start the project and do what I have to do in government, sir. And when I get the revenue at the end of the quarter in total, I can pay back those people in 91 days without having to worry about how government is operating. Because when you go to school, you expect your teachers to show up for school. You don't want your teachers to only come to school when they see money in the bank account. You don't want the janitors to only be available when the resources are being made available with respect to supplies and the like. And therefore, we use treasury bills as part of how we are able to help finance the routine operation of government, so that when the revenue is collected, we use that cycle, sir, to make sure that when the revenue is collected, that we then are able to repay the people after 91 days, that short-term financing, in order to make sure that government can continue to provide the goods and services. And I would encourage all these young people here today, speak to their parents and tell the parents, purchase some T-bills. Because in purchasing some T-bills, it helps government to do things easier. And I say so because if we don't impress upon these young people, sir, how government actually works, how it functions, then we will come up with this thing that somehow or the other things just appear from the sky. They don't just appear from the sky. You require money, sir, to get things done. And therefore, government uses a range of tools to ensure that it can deliver. And I can say to you today, Mr. Speaker, that unlike 7.5 years ago, when we owed everybody everything, that is not the case today. And therefore, we've been able to correct the issues that we were faced with. But we had to do so and be responsible because we've been able to manage our debt situation in such a way that rather than paying almost 70 cents in every dollar collected in debt 7.5 years ago, sir, we are no less than 30 cents in every dollar collected, which means that there's more money available to do things to people. And Barbadians are seeing that there's more money available to do things for people. And therefore, when the leader of the opposition, or you hear people through you, sir, to these young people, when there's a narrative that's developing saying that people don't know where the money has gone, they either genuinely don't understand how public finance works. And if they don't understand how public finance works, then I will say to you, young people, you have to be very careful with whom you put your trust. Because if you do not understand how public finance works, and you're trying to create this boogeyman, sir, then you're not only just doing yourself a disservice, but I think you're trying to hoodwink and mislead people. And it is that process that really, I think, is disingenuous, because if people are serious about the future of this country, they must be able to demonstrate that they can manage the public finances. And I will leave that there. Now, I said, sir, that the debt to GDP was 178%. The information that I have before me, sir, at the end of October, sir, as I said in the budget this year, at the end of October, the debt to GDP, sir, is now 99.8% of GDP, sir. The target was originally 60% by 2033, but because of COVID, we extended by 2 years to 2035. If we didn't have to borrow that, almost $1.2 billion for COVID, the debt to GDP now would have been 89. But we had to borrow the money for COVID, and we used the money for COVID to help people. Brazilians, your families, in some form or fashion, benefited from those resources. So as young people, and the reason that people say, the Prime Minister working too hard and the government working too hard trying to get things done is because if you leave things too long, the full benefits will not accrue in the way that you want it. So therefore you need to get things done quickly in order for people to see the benefits of them as early as possible, so that things don't cost you more by doing it tomorrow than if you did it today, or if possible, if you could have done it yesterday. And therefore it is important that through you, sir, these young people get a better appreciation for the fact that time is money. It takes time to spend money, unless you can waste it like others, but it takes time to spend money. And you don't want to waste good money, but it takes time to spend money. And therefore it is important that you are ready and prepared to ensure that every dollar that you've been able to spend, and some things will work, some will not. But the reality is, time is money, and it takes time to spend good money. Remember that. If nothing else, remember that today. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to share with you and to remind the public, because whilst I'm in the subject of the pandemic, you would recall, and I know that the leader of the opposition would recall, that in the pandemic, we devised this thing called the boss bond, sir. Do you remember? Where every member of parliament, including the leader of the opposition, as well as public servants. It was not mandatory for public servants, but I know it was mandatory for members of parliament, of which the leader of the opposition is a member of parliament. He was with us then. That's all I would say. We gave up a portion of our salary, during COVID, along with other public servants. And every month from July of 2020 to December 2021, each of us gave a part of our salary to help finance a series of interventions that the Ministry of Housing, there were about 10 projects, I think, that they were to undertake, that we gave up a bit of our salary along with public servants who opted to do it and participated in it. The total, sir, of that program of monies raised to execute was $83.815 million. So over an 18-month period, each of us in this place, as well as other public servants, set aside a piece of our salaries, given that a large part of the economy was without income, and therefore once we did not send home any public servant, we asked the public service to sacrifice a little bit in order to help with the public finances of the country. And I will say to you that this is very different. I would want you to, if you're care to, in your Christmas holidays, if you go on the IMF website and you look at the relationship between Barbados and the IMF, and you read our different engagements, you would understand the difference in principle between the public policies pursued by this government versus that of previous governments. But we did not sacrifice public servants. We asked public servants to contribute to the recovery. As you would recall, sir, that original BOSS bonds deductions was for a 4-year period. And July of last year, sir, until December of this year, every month, public servants were receiving the amortization, meaning the amount that was deducted from your salary each month. But over the 4 years, each of us were getting the interest payments all the while. And so December 2025, sir, and this is this is the original BOSS program. The total interest that was paid, sir, over the period, $16.63 million total interest paid. The total number of people who participated, 3,374 public servants, as well as members of parliament, participated in the original BOSS program. The last payment, sir, the last payment will be December 24th this year. So I hope, and sir, let me say that, I want to thank, sir, all of the public servants who assisted with government being able to finance ourselves through COVID, because they didn't have to do it, but I believe that they did it, sir, one, because they were in a position to do so, because not every public servant necessarily had the capability, because, again, if the rest of your family were impacted by COVID, a lot of people then had to take on additional responsibilities of supporting their families. So not every public servant was in a position to participate in giving up part of your salary during COVID. But I thank them nevertheless, because they helped their families to see their way through what was a very extraordinary set of circumstances. But for those 3,374 persons, of which 30 of us in here are a subset of that, sir, I want to thank all of you for allowing the government the opportunity to be creative. You've now received all of your monies back, except for the one that will come in on Christmas Eve, sir. So I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart, sir, and to say thank you, and Barbados owes you a debt of gratitude, sir. Thank you very much. It is not often, sir, that JFK was that famous saying that ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. It is not often that people actually get to do something for your country in a meaningful way. And that intervention of the boss bonds was important, sir, and I really do genuinely thank them for that. But for the avoidance of any doubt, and I hope that you young people here will carry the message for me, because I know I can hear somebody say next month that they didn't get paid. Some mischief always tends to happen. It is 18 months, sir. That 18 months comes to an end December 24th. And the last payment of the original boss bonds will come to an end. And I hope that the leader of the opposition will join with the government and not allow anybody to tarnish the sacrifice that those Barbadian citizens made to help the country through a very trying time, sir, and to ensure that we do not in any way try to diminish the trust that the people now have in this government again to honor its word. And I think that that, sir, is particularly important. And so we didn't do all of this financial engineering just to be creative and academic as people will try to make it seem. These are all interventions that were people-centered. In every ministry and government, we allocated resources to be able to help finance government's program. Thousands of Barbadians benefited significantly from it, and therefore it is important that you understand that whilst there are specific funds that are earmarked and can only be spent for specific purposes, the rest of government's portfolio allows it flexibility, because things may not always be ready in the time that you want, and therefore, if you have the resources available, it means you can do the proper planning and make sure that when you spend the money, sir, that it is spent. And I want to just turn my attention quickly, sir, to the other special loan, because I touched on it briefly, but last week, sir, as you know, I was in Waterford last week, sir, and it was in Waterford I had the privilege of addressing not just the speech day class, but the new president was also there, sir, in attendance. And the honourable member for St. Michael South, no, it has.
Honourable member, he was also there? The honourable member for St. Michael South was there?
No. I was coming to how his intervention is key, because as you know, sir, we have been promoting the rights of persons with disabilities, and we've made tremendous strides with respect to addressing some of their acute vulnerabilities. And the chairman of the board, sir, was speaking at the time, and at the time I had completely forgotten that the shaft was there next to when you come out the hall. Be that as it may, the Prime Minister in the budget, I think 2 years ago, had indicated that the NDU working with government will be retrofitting government's facilities to make them accessible for persons with disabilities. And that includes schools. And therefore, some of these resources from the OPEC, which is in support of the social framework that was initially triggered by the IDB. And I don't want to be clear, sir. It is not that particular PBL was the start of it. We've been doing things before that specific PBL. But because we were doing a lot of work within the social sector, the IDB said, well, let's create a specific policy framework that helps you to accelerate the work. So we had already earmarked the resources for the senior citizens home, the children facilities, and the like as part of the capital work and infrastructure that we need to promote in the country as part of that program. So when I made the thing at Waterford, sir, it was part of recognizing that government's overall policy of genuinely so, you know, sometimes, sir, I know that I getting close to 50, my knees starting to hurt me. And I realized that coming up the steps, No, I'm not a person with a disability, but the reality is that if we have proper inclusion, more able-bodied people perhaps, sir, will not have as much injuries as we do, because we pretend as if we fit and we're still 18 and 19, sir, when in truth, in fact, as we age, we really need to make sure that accessibility, genuinely so, is really a genuine inclusive matter. And so I know that more and more people will use the facilities if they're available, but they're intended to ensure that persons with disabilities are not disadvantaged with respect to either accessing government buildings and the ability for us to be able to include them in the process. And it was making the point, sir, that the late Craig Nurse, when I was at school, not so long ago, was in a wheelchair. But we, the students, he had cerebral palsy. We, the students, we were the ones that ensured that he felt included at school. The former president of the Senate, Carrie-Ann Eiffel, sir, I didn't know that the honorable member for St. George North can attest to this, because they were almost inseparable at school. But the point is, with she being visibly impaired, she was part of the Cormier family, sir, because we understood why it was important, sir, to ensure that people with disabilities were included. So this ain't nothing new from our perspective. We just know in a position, sir, to make sure that this thing can happen right across the system. And therefore, it is important that the work of the National Disabilities Unit continues so that we can ensure that no person, sir, because today you may be able-bodied, tomorrow, for some reason, sir, you may be afflicted with some disability. And therefore, it is important. And therefore, the resources, some of the resources from the OPET loan, sir, will be utilized to ensure that we can continue that work of making our schools, our government facilities, and other things become much more accessible, to ensure that every citizen in this country feels as if they are actually a part of the family. And that is absolutely important for us to achieve, sir. And we are confident that not just with this particular loan and the proceeds, but the government's ongoing work, sir, will ensure that we remain faithful to the policies that we have introduced and started. And therefore, we are not going to resolve from the fact that we have been able to utilize resources that people have lent us. But we've also borrowed money, sir, cheaper than we found it when we came into office. And because our credit quality, sir, has improved, it means that all now, sir, we are able to still be very disciplined, but to ensure that where we can create more space by refinancing. And I want to say to these young people, when you go home, through you, sir, through you, when you go home, I want you to ask your parents when last they went to if they have a mortgage, when last they went to the bank and got the mortgage refinanced. Too many people in this country, sir, when they get a mortgage at probably 6, 7, 8% interest, they hold on to this because it's the house. But mortgage rates in this country now are 3.5%. And therefore, the difference between paying interest at 6 or 7 or 8 versus 3.5, sir, means a world of difference in terms of what your family can do. So when you go home tonight, through you, sir, when you want to go home or when you leave here, ask your parents when last they went to the bank and ask for them to refinance the mortgage. Because it is important that we let people know that if you do not use the tools that you have available to you, you'll be spending more on things where you can create a little ease for yourself. And yes, they can tell you about fees and all that type of thing, but trust me, ask them about it. If the mortgage rate is anything north of 5%, tell them to go and tell the bank. And I know the bank's listening, sir. Every so often, the banks has put an ad in the paper asking you to switch your mortgage, and they will do it for free. That will allow your families to spend a little less when the month comes. You still own the property, everything is still there, but you're paying a little less for it. So do not let anybody tap on the head, sir, through you, trying to confuse you about how to use debt, sir, because this is one of the things that allows you to be able to pass wealth from one generation to the next, but you got to know how to use it. So that's your homework for tonight. Ask them when last they and tell all your friends at school to ask them parents the same thing, because that is what the government is doing. As our credit quality improves, sir, we have been switching out expensive debt for cheaper debt. And when you swap out expensive debt, sir, for cheaper debt, it means you got a little extra trailer, sir, that you could then use for something else in the house, or things that you can fix it, you can fix it up, you can do whatever you want, but the point is you have options. So through you, sir, to these young people here, when you get home, tell all your friends, ask your parents when last they went, check the mortgage rate, and tell them to go on, and I ain't trying to advertise for the banks, none of them, but I'm telling you, the banks is advertised for you to switch. Do not get fixated on the fact that you might have got a loan from a particular institution and you may feel a certain affinity to them. But let them know that others are out there looking to help you switch, and therefore can you match the offer that is there. And chances are they will. And that's your homework for this evening. That is what the government is doing. Swapping out expensive debt for cheaper debt, so that when we talk about creating fiscal space, the difference between paying, let's say, $2,500 a month in a mortgage payment versus paying $2,000 a month because you changed the interest rate, it's $500 extra that you have in your budget now to do. So check the existing mortgage rate. The current market rates are about 3.5%. Trust me, I have done that with my own property since 2015, sir. Every time the mortgage rates change, I go and get it. So if I could do it, you and your families can do it too, to make sure that you're benefiting from the best financing and have options to be able to do what you're doing. So when you hear about the government doing debt swaps, yeah, debt swaps, that is what we've been committed to doing, so that we have cheaper debt and using the savings to be able to do things that we ordinarily would not be able to do. And you and your families can do that in your homes as well. And so it's important, sir, that in any discussion that we have about debt, the uses are important, sir. So we ain't borrowing, sir, to go and buy drinks. We ain't borrowing to buy drinks. We're borrowing to ensure that these young people and their generation will have the best available opportunities, sir. Opportunities. And yes, I let them want to know, the same way that I benefited from a university education where the speaker was working and paying taxes for me to go to university, I am prepared to pay any amount of tax to ensure that people like me, who benefited from everything that Barbados has to offer, you too must see yourselves as carrying that baton. Because I never knew that I was gonna be in this place. That was not my mission. But the reality is that a boy from Bank sir, is now here to be able to demonstrate why it's important to invest in people. Because so once you are firm in your minds about that mission and why it's important to allow every Bajan, no matter where they come from, to be able to contribute to the country, great. Some people, all we ask is that you work, you study, you work, you pay your taxes, because Barbadians have invested in you for you to go to school, enjoy school, but when it comes to the time, you too must stand up to ensure that we can carry the legacy forward. And therefore, we are working to make sure that opportunities are not crowded out for you, which is why we've reintroduced the government paying tuition fees so that your family is not burdened by that. But by not having that burden, it means now that you must appreciate that just as we are working hard to make sure that if you can do it today, you do it today. Don't leave it for tomorrow, so that the mission of this reform can be completed as quickly as possible. And so this debt discussion, sir, is not only a numbers discussion, because the numbers are important. I tell you that we are paying less than 30 cents now in debt out of every dollar, whereas before it was close to 70 cents. So it is not, the numbers matter, trust me, the numbers matter. Because if all you are paying is debt, sir, it means that your social investment, like education, and the choices that you then have to make with respect to how quickly you can expand the QEH or the polyclinic facilities, as I know we did the debate for the Saudi loan, sir, which is dealing with the polyclinic, sir, at concessional rates. All of these are concessional rates. I will take the time just to go through those very quickly. At concessional rates, that's important because we acknowledge that whilst we are borrowing this money now to do this work, that you now must have time to get through school, find yourself into a good job, so that when you start to become responsible adults, that you now have the capability of ensuring then that the debt service is manageable for you because you benefited from somebody else being able to make the sacrifice in the past. And therefore, we do not do this as an academic exercise. This is about how any government can deliver for people. So very quickly, sir, on the finances with respect to the QEH, sir, each lot 1, the outpatient building, patient ward, burn unit, and laboratory center, sir, in part 1 of the schedule, 195.9 million Barbados dollars. The term is 14 years. It will be 22 equal semi-annual installments of $8.9 million payable on the 10th of February and the 10th of August from August 2029. So we are borrowing this money now. We have a 4-year grace period before we start to pay it back. Now, anytime you can get a grace period, sir, through you, sir, anytime you can get a grace period, anything, take it. All right? Interest rate, 3.5%, semi-annual payable, as I said, on the 10th of August and 10th of February. Lot 2, sir, the oncology center, the admin office and other outside work, sir, same 196.1 million, same 14 years, same terms. Now, 3.5%, remember I told you the mortgage rates are currently 3.5%. Given where global interest rates are today, 3.5% is a very good deal, sir, given the fact it's over 14 years. And so a mortgage is typically 25 or 30 years. I don't know when your parents might have gotten theirs, but ask them to have a relook in order to make sure that you can have it. Now this is locked in because this is fixed. You don't have to worry about interest rates going up or down, and therefore 3.5% fixed over 14 years is a very good interest rate. If there's an opportunity for us to have a cheaper rate at any point in the future, the government certainly will take the opportunity to be able to do that, as we have been doing over the course of the last few years. The OPEC loan, sir, comes in two, is split in two, sir, split in two. And we did this again given where interest rates had risen in the summer, sir. These negotiations were important in order for us to get to a better interest rate than what the prevailing market rates were at the time. So the OPEC loan is really two loans, sir, in one. Two loans in one. One loan, sir, 50 million Barbados dollars, and that has a 5-year grace period. The term is 20 years, sir, and that first loan is 3%. 3% over 20 years. And ordinarily, through you, sir, to these young people, normally, if you're borrowing money for longer, you have to pay more. Remember that, normally. I told you just now, through you, sir, that the QEH one is 14 years, 3.5%. This OPEC loan, because of Barbados' good name, our credit rating, we were able to negotiate a 20-year loan at 3%. It is not normal for somebody to give you money for a longer period for less money. But it is through the good work that we've done in this place and our negotiating skills that allowed us to be a little firm to make sure that we got the best possible rate so that you and your friends over the 20-year period, as you become adults and start working, that the interest that you'll be paying is a lot less than what the prevailing interest rates are. So this one is fixed at 3%. So if you could get longer for less, go for it. The second loan, sir, $50 million, same 5-year grace period, 20 years. But this one now is linked to SOFR, which is the overnight financing rate. They moved from LIBOR a few years ago, sir, to the secured overnight financing rate there. This now is currently indicative at 4.7%. So, together, the two loans, the real interest rate is 4.1%. So, whilst we have, so remember I told you, you normally would be, if it's longer, it will be higher. So what we were able to do was negotiate part of the loan to be lower, the first half. The second half is at what is the current market rate, which is 4.75, and therefore we were able to blend to ensure that the real interest rate, which is now roughly 4.1%, it actually matches the yield curve of government, and therefore the 3.5 that we are borrowing with the Chinese for 14 years, this now matches back in total with respect to what our yield curve should be. And I hope that one of you or some of you might wish to be in this place one day, explaining to people what I explained to you today, because it is important that we understand that without the opportunity to make decisions, which we are doing here, then it means that the capacity for you to deliver for the people, sir, and deliver policies that make sense will be hindered. And so these resolutions, sir, are being asked under the Special Loans Act, sir, because we don't currently have an act to govern OPEC, and perhaps we will bring one to do that in the future. But these two loans here, sir, are critical, as all the others have been, because in getting to where we are at, 99.8% of GDP, we are working to bring it down to 60% by 2035. We have assumed, sir, a growth rate of 2%, which works, but we have been pushing, and every year we have been exceeding the 2% growth rate for the country. It will likely be 2.7 or 2.8 by the end of December, there or thereabouts. And next year we're pushing hard for a 3.5% growth. But the assumptions for getting to 2030 by 2035 at 60% is rooted in a 2% real GDP growth rate. So long as Barbados, sir, continues to keep the growth going, it will mean that we will be able to reach the debt to GDP target much sooner. So hopefully there's no hurricanes, no COVID, no nothing else in the next few years, 10 years or so, which would allow us to get back to some measure of I said normalcy, but with respect to being able to achieve this target, I'm confident that we will be able to exceed that thing. And I knock on wood, sir, because there are lots of things happening in the geopolitical space that could contribute to having an impact on that. But we are sufficiently confident that we have set not just the economy on the right path, but that the people of this country and the young people, for sure, can see that there are opportunities, sir, within which they can participate. And I hope that one day these somebody from within this group here might determined that they too want to contribute to shaping young minds and wish to come into this place, sir, and to do very, 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 very good work. But I am satisfied, sir, that notwithstanding what people have been saying, the government, yes, we have to do a better job of communicating directly. So that's why, remember, check the transport board buses when I told you to leave here, because seeing is believing. And the government has delivered a lot of the work, especially the pipes that are delivering water, and all now, with respect to the issues that are being addressed in St. Lucie. Those are from resources that we have been able to access in order to address the water issues in St. Lucie. And whilst the pipes will be buried, the reality is that I know that once that solution is put in place, that whilst the inconvenience is there and it is regretted, the reality is that we have resources to make available to solve the problem. And certainly the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central can easily attest, if you don't have the money to do the job cannot be done. And so long as this government is here, we are committed to ensuring that not just to fiscal responsibility, but being able to deliver for the people of this country. I didn't touch on education or agriculture, but I know that if colleagues contribute, they can speak to those issues, because there's so much things that we've been able to do in a range of areas that it would be unfair for me to go and list off everything, sir, here, but we will communicate it. But at the end of the day, I urge Barbadians to reflect seriously on what we have been able to achieve in spite of COVID, in spite of the ash, sir. We had 2 hurricanes, global uncertainty in all forms, from the logistics issues to war, and now threats of war closer to home, sir. We have been able to navigate and continue to deliver for people. And we've done so because we've been people-centered from the very beginning. And there are things, yes, that some people may not be fully happy with, but at the end of the day, our record, sir, has been strong. We have, in all of that, and I forgot to mention, because I really cannot take my seat without mentioning this. $407 million, sir. So, for the record again, hold on. For the record again, sir, between June 2018 and September of 2025, sir, the government borrowed $7.341 billion. We have repaid $9.346 billion in debt, sir. So, for the record again, sir, we borrowed $7.341 billion, and we have repaid $9.346 billion. But $407 million of that, sir, was specifically to resolve the CLICO and the British American matter, foisted on taxpayers of this country, sir, foisted on the taxpayers of this country. $407 million, sir, for the resolution of the CLICO matter. And I remember, sir, meeting with the Director of Finance, and almost 3,000 people at LESC, sir, who were quite angry in May of 2019. And I was saying to the DFE the other day, I am surprised that we got out of there that evening. Because for 10 years, no, seriously, for 10 years, people were left languishing because of a matter that remained unresolved. And then almost in the end, it was foisted on the government to resolve. Costing taxpayers money that really should not have been put on us. But having been placed on us, and at that time, it was $600 million that was placed on us, sir, we had to resolve the matter. And people were justifiably angry because it should never take 10 years. And to this day, sir, you know, things are still unresolved in other places, but that's a different matter for a different time. But of this monies that people may be saying you're not sure where the money has gone, those policyholders, sir, of Clipper, Bajans like us, taxpayers had to come to the rescue, sir. And that notwithstanding, you would remember, sir, that there were some plantations that were pledged to resolve matters as it relates to the OECS. Now, for the benefit, through you again, sir, for these young people who are here today, CLECO was a company which was a pan-Caribbean company, headquartered in Trinidad. It was the first time in the history, in my, at least I can think of, in my living memory, where you had a headquarters in Trinidad, a subsidiary in Barbados, and a further subsidiary in the OECS, sir. And the parent, sir, the parent was allowed not to get away from dealing with the issues of the child. Now, the parent company, my good friend here, brought a child protection bill to this chamber last year, the member for St. Michael South, brought a child protection bill here, and I raised it in this context because financially, it is important to understand that when a government makes decisions to assume something and resolve and absolving people of responsibility, there's something fundamentally wrong with that. But I make the point, the company failed, and the parent company look out for themselves. And we in Barbados ended up having to deal with not just Barbados, but the OCS, sir. And the assets were pledged, not by us, these Barbadian assets, pledged plantations that for almost 10 years, well, actually a little longer than 10 years. Because then, after we finished resolving the matters for the individual policyholders in Barbados, we then had to negotiate, sir, $38 million to get the plantations, this is on top of the 407, to get back the plantations that was pledged, that the Honourable Member for St. Michael South now, given that we had to take on new debt to resolve the matter for the OECS, so that we can get those plantations back into production, so that young people in the feed program in this country, sir, are now actively again participating in agriculture, sir. And so when people, and I say people, let me say people, when there are questions coming from the opposition quarters about where the money has gone with respect to the debt, when you drive around St. Philip, St. John, and those areas where those plantations were, all they were doing is catching cowitch and bush, are now being pressed into production, employing young Barbadians in this country, so that when we tell you that the economy is now larger than it was when we found it, all of this activity linked to debt, sir, foisted on us by the last government. People have short memory, sir, but I vowed, sir, that I can tell this story over and over and over and over, because these young people must know that when a government comes to this place and pledges to do something, there must be some long-term benefit to them. And therefore, we have had to take on additional debt in order to get lands that are physically in Barbados back into production, so that young people who want a little chance in agriculture, sir, that we now have land that we could give them to participate in this economy. And the Honourable Member for St. Philip South has been leading the charge with respect to that. And therefore, again, through you, sir, to these young people, if you've got any young friends that are interested in agriculture, these lands are now available again once more to allow people to be able to have access to land, to be able to get into agriculture. And so, sir, this debate, yes, was focusing on how we improve infrastructurally services and expand the services that the QEH can offer. And the other loan, which is to help accelerate the work that we're doing in the social sector to build resilience in this country, especially those who are most vulnerable, sir. I am proud to be able to come to this parliament as a boy from Bank Hall, sir, walking school every day, benefiting from people like yourself. And I see the honourable member here for St. Michael Leeds, not to aid you, but people like yourself, sir, who paid for me to go to university or contributed to my education. I say in the presence of these young people that they too must carry on the fight, because all of us have had the opportunity to carry the baton a little along the leg of the race, sir, and we can't drop the baton. We've got to try to give these young people the baton better, sir, than we found it. And these two resolutions here today, along with everything else that we've been able to do cumulatively in the last 7 years, has allowed this country, sir, to be able to breathe again, has allowed this country to feel confident again, sir. And therefore, I know that when the leader of the opposition was with us, he understood these issues then. But all of a sudden, sir, he don't understand these issues today. Young people watching, sir, the young people watching. Because if you understood when you was part of the team, you can't suddenly get amnesia, sir, when it comes to these issues. Because that is the kind of thing that young people hate, that type of hypocrisy, if you can coin such a phrase in this space, sir, that people don't like. The reality is, sir, government's ability to finance itself requires choices to be made. We have been responsible with respect to how we have been able to manage the public finances. And as the president said, sir, no retreat, no surrender. We have been responsible and good stewards of the public purse. We will continue to do so. And so long as I know the members of the team are able, we will continue in every ministry, every sector, to ensure that we let Barbadians understand the benefits of utilizing good debt, the benefits of delivering for people. So there's no mystery as to the connection, sir, between the macro and the micro, and therefore we work hand in hand to ensure then that from access to education, to access to health, to being able to provide resources with respect to including people with disabilities, that are right across the spectrum, sir, that we're able to deliver policy coherence and services that I believe that people will be proud of in time. And so with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that this resolution do not pass. Thank you very much.
These young people that's one, so that decide to do it. Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that we do now suspend this sitting for a period of 5 minutes.
The question is that this honourable chairman be suspended for 5 minutes. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. May think the ayes have it. This honourable chairman stands suspended for 5 minutes.